Okay, 1, 2, 3,
Welcome to the Hombu Dojo podcast.
What up?
This is Rue, that's Ross, and special guest,
Matthew
Last from HDKI-GB.
Correct.
And Matthew is on the internship, making him the first ever HDKI Great Britain intern.
Which
at the Hombu Dojo.
surprised me so much, because I just assumed there'd been a few Brits allowed out, but obviously I was the first one.
There's a lot of animosity towards them over here.
Is that what it is?
No.
In this dojo.
You've had Americans, you've had Swedes, you've had Spanish, you've had French, I think.
Sri Lankans.
Sri Lankans.
No French.
No, okay.
No. But we've sort of gained a lot of clubs and members recently. The HDKI has in the UK, but it's all been during the pandemic, so they haven't had a chance to come over and do the internship. But I say it'll be all Englishmen from now on.
Well, there are a few I know who would dearly love to do it. You know, and Andrea Sensei and Stuart Amos Sensei and probably other people as well. If this podcast doesn't put them off, of course.
Oh, we've had interns on the podcast a lot as well. So if they've listened, they probably have an idea of what it's like.
Yeah,
But
we give them a script that they have to follow and lovely things about the dojo.
But I think it's different for everybody. I've read the famous Red Book, which I need to complete today, and of course everybody's experience is different. A, the amount of time they've spent on doing it. Secondly, why they're doing it. Thirdly, the state of their karate, and fourthly, the most importantly, whether they sleep in the dojo.
Very important.
Which listeners, I have not slept in the dojo.
You don't have to sleep in the dojo.
No, you don't, because Mrs. Last came with me, and which is how I managed to get here for a month. And we've rented an Airbnb, and she's working remotely. So sleeping in the dojo, I think, would have been divorce.
Why not do a fancy internship? But I've no memory of what I wrote in that book. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. I'll check it later.
It's supposed to be in here. But
it's supposed to be. Oh, there it is. I see it. The Red Book. Ooh. Right under the portrait of Scott Sensei as a Viking. I love that picture so much because he's got such a sweet little benevolent smile on his face. He looks like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. And he's dressed as a Viking warrior, like he'd
covered in battle armour.
That's like an Arctic fox around his shoulders.
Yeah, he actually looks like somebody's doing something anatomical to him.
He looks very happy.
So you mentioned briefly why everyone's experience is different, and one of the things is why they're doing the internship. So why did you?
Good question. So I'm not an instructor. I'm no intention of setting up a dojo. But I do want to improve my karate, so I did it because I realised that immersion, essentially, into training with you guys was the only way for me to get better. Because I tried training by myself a lot and going to clubs locally in Cambridge where I live, but it's just not enough, essentially. So coming here is intense in its regime, if you like, but also it's intense in the sense of I've got lots and lots of pages of notes of things to go away and practice. So maybe I have to come back again in a year. Well, I will come back again in a year, not necessarily as an intern, to top it up and be reminded of all the things I've forgotten that you guys have so helpfully aided me with. So I did it because I could, because I wanted that top up of karate, and because of my age and health, this might be my last chance, as it were. So and it's been an unmitigated success.
So it's been a leap of faith. You just threw yourself into it. You just got the notion and decided, why not?
Well, as you know, I have the advantage of joining you guys on the instructor's Zoom training in the morning. So I had an inkling of that, although it's very different doing it in person than it is on
when you can't
Zoom.
Scarp her off camera and have a break.
I was saying to somebody the other day, it's really amazing how many times DHL were knocking on the door.
Yeah.
So I had to go for 5 minutes.
Or we check you on the big TV and you're cleaning your fridge.
Oh, I've cleaned the fridge here, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Did it yesterday. And no, it's obviously very, very different. Plus, there's the three mornings a week of intensive, Tabata type training or tube or weight, plus the teaching, which you think isn't exhausting, but of course you have to be switched on. And I've done an hour or sometimes 2 every day, and then 2 hours every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's absolutely fantastic, but it is, that's a lot of karate. For me, 5 hours a day of karate is almost certainly my threshold.
I think that's the threshold for most people.
Yeah.
I think you've been doing really well, Matthew.
I have had to take the weekends off because Jane, my wife, is here and gone off, so that's enabled me to recover. Because on Fridays, I am pretty hollowed out. I don't think I could do karate on Fridays, but by Monday mornings I'm bouncing, and I have come in on Monday mornings because you gave me a set of keys and done a bit of stuff by myself on 3 of the Monday mornings, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. So it's a lot of training, huh? You're halfway through your final week. What day is it? Thursday?
No.
Oh, this is your final day.
This is my final day.
Last day, yeah.
Oh, right.
I've got 2 hours tonight with Scott Sensei and you of course.
No, because tonight Bob Sensei.
Bob Sensei.
Bob Rhodes, the KUGB legend himself, is in the dojo tonight.
Yeah.
So that's going to be super exciting to see. Just to be in the presence of the man.
Yeah.
That's it. These pioneers of their time.
Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten because I have signed up for it and indeed paid for it.
Wait, this sounds a little bit passive aggressive.
No. I'm happy. No, I think one should pay for things in life. If you certainly if you can.
Well, so like I just said a minute ago, it's your last day. You normally, an intern would do their lesson. They teach their class on the class of there. But you did yours on Tuesday because we've got Bob tonight. How would you describe what Matthew Sensei taught us on Tuesday, Ross Sensei?
Sports. It was a lesson in sports psychology and your mental state before performing, and during performing. And it was. I thought it was fantastic. I don't know if I'm curious because I was surprised at the. I always get really annoyed at students, and not just our students, but just students whenever you're away travelling. When it's any questions, and they never ask questions, and I'm thinking you've got this person here for a couple of hours. If you don't know, or even if but it's that fear of looking like an idiot, isn't it? And the lack of interaction in some points during your class, I thought this is brilliant, and. It's difficult to ask questions when you're already sort of grasp it in your head. I think a lot of people though would have benefited from interacting a little bit more with the session. But I thought it was fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I noticed something that I've never sort of thought about is how I would talk about flicking the switch.
Yeah.
And this is a very friendly dojo, very community-based dojo. We're all pals and having fun and stuff. But then, I always talk about there's times where on the dojo you need to just flick the switch and be in the zone. And I've never really thought about how you get yourself into that mindset.
Yeah.
And you've done a lovely sort of
because there is no switch, man. Where's the switch?
It's inside.
Sometimes it's a slider.
But you sort of held everyone by the hand and walked them through the process, which was fantastic. I thought.
Thank you.
Now, what qualifies you to teach a class like that, Matthew Sensei?
Well, in my business life, I have a business where we do executive coaching and working with boards and leadership teams and executive teams. So I have done a lot of courses.
Yes, that's why I wanted to talk about it.
I'm not a trained or qualified psychologist, but I have done huge amounts of training in things like coaching and facilitation and subsets of psychology like transactional analysis and NLP and those sorts of things. So I have a sort of portfolio of things that are tried and tested because I've done it for a long time, and I know with clients that I'm working with, if they get to this place where they can anchor a state of knowing how they're going to feel about something, how they're going to see something, how they're going to hear something, that they can perform. And classically in my business it's somebody making a presentation, but it's no different. And I know that sports psychologists use these techniques, and as the examples I cited on my course were people in golf, people in rugby, but I know they use it in tennis, and you can use it in anything, frankly. So I took a slight risk because, of course, Scott's brief was teach something that you've learnt over the last 4 weeks, and I was sitting there thinking, well, what I've learned is that all my karate needs rebuilding, so that doesn't exactly establish a credibility issue for me. So, and then I thought, Ross said to me my karate was still too top heavy, which is true. It's not as top heavy as it was, but it still is. And I thought, well, how would I deal with that? And I thought, well, hold on a minute, that's a phrase, top and heavy. So what's the opposite for me? Is it bottom and is it light? And I thought, no. And then I suddenly realised that I had techniques for feeling and visualising and hearing how I would do karate that wasn't top heavy. And then I thought, well, I can teach that because I know what I'm doing in that, and I don't have to pretend that I can teach people to do Kadambarai and all those sorts of things. And then I thought, well, who have we got in the class? And I know there are some beginners and there's the red belts, right the way up to fourth and fifth dans. And then I thought, well, actually, if we do High-End Shodan, nobody's going to be worrying about what the kata is because everybody can do it. And it's a more complicated kata than it looks in a way, isn't it? And it was a guess, but it worked because when it started, the High-End Shodans were so stumpy and rigid, even by Dan grades, and it's because they learnt to do stompy High-End Shodans when they've never reformed it, as it were, they never revisited it. And by getting people to think about what they were doing at a micro level and adjust it, and getting you two, who you were fantastic, to come up and talk about how you did High-End Shodan, and then getting people to adapt perhaps your style or Ru Sensei, or your style Ross Sensei, or something else. They were trying on for size different representations of it, and we had some wonderful examples from the group, didn't we? Like somebody who said, I need my High-End Shodan to be grounded all the way through. And what you noticed that when she did it, she was grounded to start and grounded at the end, completely lost it in the middle. And I said, well, what would it be like to be grounded all the way through? And what does grounded feel like? And hey presto, after 3 goes, it was grounded 98% of the way through. So that was a success.
It's a super analytical approach, like super cerebral karate.
It is, and I was challenged by Scott Sensei the next morning to say, this isn't the total answer, and of course it isn't, because super analytical is fine, but you've still got to do 5,000 repetitions, haven't you? And I think that he was valid in that point. And the second point he made, which I thought was incredibly interesting, was it's really hard for an instructor like you guys to use a word or an image without it becoming a dogma.
Right.
So he said to me, look, if I said to people, do this, everybody will say, well, that's the law, that's the script, burn any heretics who do it any other way. So he said, so what he does is talk about principles and people can adapt it. And I thought that was incredibly useful, and it made me think, well, my stuff is an addition to, like a supplementary to what you guys do, because it can unlock people. But there's no point in using my technique to teach High-End Shodan to a beginning. They've got to at least know what a Kadambarai is and a Oizuki is, and then doing 4 shutos in succession. So I think it's supplementary, and for some people it clearly unlocks something, because I had 6 or 7 people came up to me afterwards, from red belts through to knee dans, saying,
to the senses,
this has really made a huge difference to me. And the other thing I realised was that I was really careful not to impose my words. So when Paul Sensei said, for me, doing good karate is that I'm happy, and I thought
that was great.
Well, and then he messaged me afterwards and said, this is a really important word for me, and I thought, but it's not my word, and it's not your word, so for Claire Sensei, her word was grounded, which is quite a common word, but other people, I mean, you had expert as a word, didn't you? For example,
as soon as I'd said it, I meant expert, and what it meant to me was correct, but I think a more accurate term to have other people understand what I meant would have been connected. So I said connected then later when you were asking people for random words. What I meant was connected.
But I think even connected means you get 10 people in the room, you have 10 different meanings. So it's got to be your word, phrase. It's got to be your visual representation. So you and I discussed it, and you said that when you're looking at visualizing how you might do something perfectly, you visualize Scott Sensei doing it, but another person actually won't be disassociated. Looking at somebody else, they'll be associated. Like, I'll be doing it. So, and that's the difference. Is your karate is often quite is quite. This is how it's done. These are the principles of how it's done. So there's a degree of direction. There's a degree of teach, essentially. And my approach there was highly facilitative, in a sense, right? Because I didn't tell anybody anything. Well, I told people to do Iron Showdown.
Yeah.
And I told people to stop doing it so stompy.
Yeah.
And I said, don't be so energetic with it. And I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't direct. And by the end, the noise was completely different. You could hear a flow of Iron Showdowns around the room that wasn't there in the beginning.
That must be because of the innate ability to recognize quality. Everybody in some way knows the right way to do, even though I can't and I don't fully understand yet. But just by analysing the way they do it, it became more quiet in the room. So that must mean that when they start really, really trying hard to get it just right, then things naturally start coming together.
Yeah,
because nobody said more quiet.
No.
That they want their Heian Shodan to be more quiet.
No, and I was watching Michael, who's a red belt, who's very keen, and he came up to me, and I could see he was doing a much better Gedanbarai and Oizuki, and he knew he was. Mm-hmm. He knew he was doing it better because he knew he was frustrated with how to do it beforehand, and he knew it was different. Now maybe it's not perfect. I mean, mine's not perfect, but it was really nice to hear that. So it was a bit of a risk to do it that way, but who cares?
Yeah, you
I'm
pulled
old
it
enough
off.
and ugly enough to take risks.
You pulled it off big time.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I always find it amazing. It's silly, but I always find it amazing why people don't just think that way all the time.
Yeah.
Like as someone who's very, who's been training with Scott Sissy for 7 years now, and that mindset is just always like it's very automatic for myself. I always forget people don't have the same thing as you. So sometimes not having them sort of self-analyse and relying on, like you say, the sensei to sort of take the reins, so to speak. Yeah, it was eye-opening for me. Like just how to get people in the mindset in order to do the best performance that they can do. And you talked about the imaginary circle.
Yes.
Oh, this was great.
Yes.
And
The circle of excellence.
and the circle being like your source of energy, and when you step into the circle, it's like scanning your whole body, and you can feel it going through your body, and you can.
Well, now that's not what Matthew said. This is your thing.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that myself.
That's it, like, and you can
Like the Terminator, like.
That's for me. It was like just going through it. Like I stepped in and it went in my body, and all of a sudden I noticed, because we've done it. You made us do it a couple of times, and each time there was something more coming out of it. It's like you said feel it getting more. More potent, more stronger. And the first time I was standing behind Scott, and I wasn't until a couple of seconds I realised I'm staring right at the back of Scott's head, his little bald spot forming.
He doesn't have a bald spot.
Things get edited
Don't
out.
say that on the podcast.
You can't see it here, we can't. You gotta listen to it. and then we stepped out, and then we went again, and then I realised that after a couple of seconds that I'm actually. Like Scott, you know how your eyes do that weird crossover thing? Yeah. And I was like, Scott's now crossed over, and I'm actually looking through him to the wall.
Soft gaze.
And it was like that, and it was like, each time we done that exercise, I got more and more into that mindset. And I realised this is the mindset I have before I go on and compete and fight. Yeah. And the mantra that I have is slightly different, but this allowed me to get into that headspace in a completely different way, which was just really interesting.
It's interesting. You already had essentially what's called an anchor, a place you went to as a mindset before you compete. But most of the people in that room probably hadn't got that equivalent of this is where I go before I compete or before I grade or whatever. So you're giving them a tool to do that. And as you say, the more times you do it, the more potent and embedded it becomes, because you're actually creating a neurological pathway, and we now know that actually you do things repeatedly, and the neurons, the synaptic links, get thicker, and you can photograph it. It's extraordinary, and it's interesting because my one isn't potency coming up, my one is groundedness going down. Isn't it different? My circle of excellence is different.
My mind fluctuates up and down, and then it settles in the centre, and then expands out to every part of me. Nice. And it was funny, you know when you said pick it up, physically pick up the circle and put it somewhere. I didn't, because mine went and like, it came from the floor into my chest. I was like, boom,
like Alien.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
On your face.
And I was just like, that's my own little world, like, going there.
Isn't it interesting how words can, because actually the mistake was saying pick it up, when actually for some people it wasn't picking it up, it was just...
Yeah, I didn't pick mine up either.
No, isn't that interesting?
I left us on the floor and walked away.
No,
like a pile of dog do.
There's a little spot on the floor where people get a little tingle when they walk over.
Well, I did see people pick it up, and I saw some people put it on their finger or around the wrist. I saw a lot of people take it into their heart, which of course is, then, and we now know there is a heart intelligence and a gut intelligence. There are neurons in there, and some of our thinking is done in our heart and in our gut. And we've always known that through sort of literature, but now with science to prove it. It's
gut feeling and follow your heart.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think what karate is beautiful at is that integration of mind and body. So I'm just adding to that essentially. So I was delighted with it. I was on a bit of a high when I went home.
You should have been.
Yeah.
Had a beer.
Well
Very good. Oh, I wish I had a beer right now.
Oh man, it's weird doing the podcast.
We're
doing this at like midday.
It's 12:15 right now. It's awful.
Very unusual. Must be.
But I mean, it's also for me to give back, because I have received so much from you, and I'm a great believer in give and take and quid pro quo and all of that. So if I could give something back to the wonderful community that is HDK in Dublin, I mean that was good for me, because it would be quite easy to come here and say take, interrogate each of you and get stuff out of you, but I believe you should be a contributive member of the community when you're here as an intern. I mean I'm sure other ones have in their own way. I've just done it in my way really, which is A, teaching, and B, cleaning the fridge.
But I think the nature of this community is that the best way to give back is just to be a good member of the community by training hard and being kind to people and practicing good karate and yada yada yada. What else? Karate adventures, shuhari, all that good stuff.
There's on the wall somewhere. Where is it?
I mean, you really do have something here, because I can't help but analyse the way an organisation works. This is what I do for a living. And Scott Sensei has created something quite amazing here, because it's high quality karate, it's a nice community, it's a supportive community, there's feedback, you're pairing up and giving decent feedback, and even somebody a lower grade can give you very insightful feedback. I think the standard of the teaching you do of kids here is exceptional, because it's so well structured, and you're all good at it and you like doing it, and the adult classes are fantastic. So the whole thing knits together, and I have trained and do train in other places, and of course perhaps you've got some advantages because you've got 500 members, so you can separate out kids of a certain grade and adults, and a lot of the other places I do is a mix of grades and mix of ages, but nonetheless it's really well organised and structured here actually, and like everything in organisational life, each individual part of the system contributes to something being bigger than the individual parts. So I've been deeply impressed by everything apart from the showers, really.
Well, you cleaned those too.
I did clean those too, but there's still a little bit of mould. Well, I mean, the trouble is, it's a damn building, isn't it? It's
a shed.
It's a shed.
It's a glorified shed.
And it has, I hadn't realised in my first week the sheer numbers of people coming through every day.
Yeah.
And of course that does make it what it is, but there's nothing you can do about
we'll say
it.
lived in.
Yeah, no, I know. I just said the word shed, and I'm sure there's people forming, creating a visual, mental image. But no, it was a garage. Now it's got an extremely expensive sprung wooden floor and lovely mirrors and everybody's name in Japanese on the wall and dance shirts hanging in the hallways. It's not just a shed. It's a very nice shed.
You see, and there are nuances to that, because if you end up down the end where the lower grades are, there isn't the air circulation, so it's hotter.
There would be if anybody would turn on the dehumidifiers, Ross Sensei.
Why are you doing me? It's nothing to do with me. I'm not slipping.
But at the more senior Dan grade end, you've got more space. But there's wobbly floorboards.
That's because of heavy downgrades up there stamping about.
Yeah, that's right. But these are very minor things, given that one of the places I train with in Cambridge is effectively a concrete floor, and by hour 2, my knees are giving me serious jib. Yeah. Especially when it starts to do MP or Kankusho or something. It's quite hard to jump. Yeah.
Well, yeah, for sure. You'd need to find a different way to do it on a floor like that.
Well, I think I'm just turning now, and doing it essentially.
Oh, I see. Yeah, without doing that jump. Yeah, but even the after the Agazuki, you open your hand and you drive forward with that knee. Even that would be really, really hard to do safely on a hard floor like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, if you were to sum up this internship for your best moment, if you could pick a singular moment as your best moment.
Well, I sometimes look. One of the beauties of this dojo is there's mirrors on the wall, so you can see yourself, and you can see where your technique is okay, or in my case, mostly not okay. But I have seen myself on more than one occasion smiling and thinking, I just love being here, even though I'm struggling with this technique. So that's quite frequent. And some of my best moments have been when you, Ross Sensei, have taken a kata to pieces, because you teach it in a way that really works for me, because you break it down, you explain why, you back it up with the principles, and I can go away and implement that, and I can remember it, and I can take it away. And every time you've done it, I've experienced you doing it online, but face to face, when I can come and ask you a question, or I can watch you. If I had a video of you doing every single one of the 26 katas and so on, I'd be happy as Larry. So my most recent example of that is last night. When you had said, it wasn't last night, was it? It was Monday. It was
yesterday morning.
Yesterday morning. Yeah. Pick a kata, and so that's been wonderful.
Do you think we should make a DVD?
I should make my own DVD.
Yeah. No, I want to do one as well. We'll see who sells the most DVDs.
So that's been a series of best moments. I've really enjoyed watching you guys teach with kids and helping with that and being invited in. And last time I trained with Ryu Sensei, I just decided that I was going to stand there and let the kids hit me so they could do proper punches. And I didn't ask Ryu Sensei, and he could have said, Matthew, that's not what we do.
Because we were just repeating Gyakuzukis, and I turned around and you were like, go on, harder!
and actually, it sort of worked, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And so I was thankful for you giving me permission to do that. I really enjoyed it. So there's that. And then the third thing I've really enjoyed is just how welcoming everybody is. Like 17-year-olds like Caitlin and Ben, incredibly come up, talk to me, welcoming, bit of banter. A lot of 17-year-olds are quite shy and quite reserved and quite awkward, and they're not. But in the changing rooms, just having conversations with everybody, it's not, well, I'm a Dan Graydon and talking to you. So, I've been having good conversations about life and rugby and...
Yeah, I was giving relationship advice the other day. I heard when you came in.
Oh, did I? Oh, yeah. Well, one person who
maybe we don't want to name them. Okay.
Who is getting married very soon.
Oh, yes.
Said, no. Did I have any advice on getting married? And I said, well, I don't know if I'm really expert in this, but I'll give you my experience, having done it twice. And
a veteran.
He was very, he was listening to what I said, which is. I don't know if you've ever come across the ancient poet Khalil Gibran, but he has a very...
Oh, yes.
Gibran. It's pronounced Khalil Gibran.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
But it's about being the oak tree and the cypress and living next door to each other.
Yeah.
And not...
Nerds.
No, I don't know. Doing the thing where you say it straight after.
Well, what I have observed, because I'm not an expert at this, is that if you live with somebody or you have a relationship and then you get married, some people, when they get married, they bring a whole host of assumptions like, well, I don't need to bother anymore.
Yeah.
Or my partner will do the washing up. And I said, you still have to have your own space and respect each other and not treat it any differently. You still have to work at it, essentially, and compromise. And he thought that was quite useful. I thought that was anyway. Best.
We'll see how it goes.
Well, exactly.
We'll keep an eye on that one.
We'll keep an eye on that marriage. Given that 1 in 2 marriages don't work. Yeah. So
That's in America, though, isn't it? Surely
No,
not here.
I think in the UK it's
Oh,
about...
Oh, the UK? Must be better
you
here.
can't get divorced here. Should the Pope have fit?
The Pope. How Frank wouldn't like that.
But I mean, but the point is, it's such a community, and it's so open, and I suspect a lot of that is because Irish people are open and chatty and communal, perhaps more than reserved Brits are. But I think it's more than just the Irishness of it. I think it's actually
because there's not a lot of Irish people in this
No, I know.
culture.
I was counting the other day. I was thinking there's more foreigners training than there were Irish.
Yeah, like Dublin is a multicultural
Yeah.
city anyway, but you just don't get a lot of Irish people doing karate. Like, there's loads of Polish in Ireland.
Yeah.
It's the second biggest community in Ireland. Not that many Polish in the dojo either. Hundreds, like thousands and thousands of Indians and Brazilians. Not many of those in the dojo either. We get a mishmash of crazy.
We get the unwanted.
the Serbians. Less said about the Serbs, the better. Now, moving on.
So those are lots of lovely best moments there. So it sounds like you've had a lovely time. But what would be the worst thing?
Well, I live on this razor's edge of, of not being naturally talented at sports like you are, and
No, he was talking about you.
No. People think
I'm determined and I'm trying and I'm doing the best I can, but one has to manage one's frustrations with, repeatedly. Including today, Scott will say do something and he does it, and it's so natural. And I can't do it. I need to go away and do it 100 times to do it. And I sometimes can see that that's very frustrating for me, but also possibly frustrating for the person teaching, especially if I'm the only person in the room who can't do it. Luckily, I'm not, and today I wasn't the only person who could do things. So the worst moments are coming to terms with my own karate inadequacies, and then also because of my age and because I'm because of the cancer treatment that I had and I'm still ongoing, I have some physical limitations as well, and I try and work around those. But every now and then I get frustrated, like I just can't kick high anymore because all my lymph nodes have been zapped. So well, not all of them, but the wrong ones have been zapped, and so there's a little bit of that. Plus, believe it or not, one of the frustrations is that I've had to work here in order to keep my business going. So in the middle of the day, I sort of do a 3 or 4 hour block of work in the middle. And it's meant that quite a lot of this stuff that you've given me, I've not been able to come back quietly into the dojo and spend half an hour just doing it. So this, driving off the back leg, for example, in some of the fantastic kumite you've been teaching, I really needed to spend half an hour doing that one and then half an hour doing that one, and I haven't been able to do that. So that's a bit of a frustration.
But all these things will occur to you when you go back to your training in Cambridge.
I hope
these
so.
things, you'll be pottering up and down the dojo, and you'll think, "Oh no, hang on a second! I remember all of a sudden this back leg drive thing." And
get it tattooed on your hand.
It'll all seep in gradually.
Yeah, and then I, because I waver, like, I move like a pendulum, and then I then think, well, actually, if I've done 4 or 5 hours, I'm not sure I can come back in the dojo in the middle of the day.
No.
I mean, secret confession, I've had a sleep in the afternoon every day that I've been here.
Yeah.
Might be 10 minutes, might be half an hour, but it's been absolutely
I do a
necessary.
3 hour sleep sometimes.
Yeah, so I suppose that's the downside. There aren't many other downsides because it's only just started raining in the last 2 days.
Oh, stop.
I'm walking 4 to 5 miles a day as well, just backwards and forwards from our Airbnb, so that's quite good because that's a warm down.
Yeah.
And it means I can get a beer on the way back. And then the other wonderful highlight, which has nothing to do with this, is each weekend, Jane, my wife, and I have, because we've got our car here, have been able to go off and walk Glendalough or spend last weekend in Kilkenny, and I think that's been a real highlight for me, is being able to explore Ireland and switch off from the karate for a couple of days, because I think you do need time out, don't you? Really.
That's great. I asked you what your worst thing was, and you ended up on positives again. Which is good.
That's the sort of person I am.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I've got a huge diary when I get back, and as you know, I've just had a phone call for the charity I'm involved with. So, in a sense, the worst thing is what I've stored up for myself when I get back.
Go back to the real world.
Absolutely.
But you'll take, probably because you're going to be very busy, you're going to take a little break from training, maybe miss a session here and there.
Well, an interesting thing for me is that I have discovered in the last few months that if I do karate every day,
You're more efficient.
Well, I'm more efficient work-wise,
Yeah.
but I'm healthier, and some of my health issues go away. And I've noticed if I don't train, particularly for a few days on the trot, stuff starts coming back. So karate has become an imperative in my life.
Medicine.
It's become a medicine. That's a good word, actually. And I hadn't realised that until I didn't do it for a week or two. So even if I feel tired, I'll go and do something. It might be slow and it might be stretching or whatever. So that's been a really important for me. And it's not going to go because I can't not do karate, which is a double negative, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And that's been quite a revelation for me.
Well, that completely... No, never mind then. Forget what I was going to say. I was going to say, you'll have a little break and then, because you've been training very intensely, probably more than ever before.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, so maybe a week off when you go home, and then when you get back in the saddle, you'll hit the ground at a gallop. And you'll have a fresh perspective based on everything you've learned, and you'll be able to implement all those little things you learned. Like, I had no time to come when I was on the internship. I was exhausted all the time, and I had no time to do my own little practice sessions. Maybe I did one or two, I can't really remember. But then I went home to Cork and I was training on my own in a squash court in the dark, because it cost €2 to put the lights on. And they only stayed on for 45 minutes. So it was €4 every time I wanted to train. So so I was training on my own, and I just had to think of all the things I'd been taught, and then that got frustrating and tiring, so I just had a video of a Tabata session. So I did Tabata like 5 times a week.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be driving for most of Saturday, so I know on Sunday my body will be stiff and saying I don't want to train, and I will train because otherwise it'll get worse. But I have to go to hospital for a day next week as well, so there'll be a couple of days when I won't be able to train.
Okay.
So,
like not even training, but just moving.
Just moving.
Moving every day is important.
Well, in my work as a coach, I work with hundreds of people, and I notice who looks younger and healthier than they really, they look healthy, but they look younger than they really are. And consistently, yoga is top. It's quite interesting. And then it's Pilates, dance, martial arts. And I've thought about that a lot, and I've realised, because this is me being an amateur, it's because they stretch all the parts of the body, unlike many other forms of exercise. So they work the lymph system, they work everything. And I think that's why karate is so vital, is because it works all parts of the body.
I'm aging double thanks to karate. Dog years. That's what I've got.
Dog years.
I mean, I've not ever done much yoga, but it is quite extraordinary how people who do yoga just look really healthy.
Yeah,
I think it's also
about
the health culture that comes with yoga as well. Is a big thing.
They eat properly, don't they? And they sleep properly, and they don't drink beer like me.
No beer. That's
no crack.
No crack.
No, they're good crack. The yoga people are all right crack. Okay, they're not. All right, wait, maybe we should get a yoga person on just to talk about the crack.
Just the crack.
I'll get Orla on. She's a yoga instructor. I'll get her on the podcast. Yeah, we'll do karate versus yoga. See who wins.
Well, that would be good. Yeah, just to. But it's interesting because I
trained in India and everything. That'd be perfect.
See who wins what though? The crack.
Yeah.
Well, obviously we're great crack.
Yeah, I know we're great. Now Orla's good crack too.
But I think there's actually quite an overlap because quite a lot of the warm-up exercises in karate are yoga moves. Yeah. So in a way they're not. They're not. So kick the microphone.
Don't kick the microphone, Jesus.
I've kicked it towards me, so I can talk more. So I think in a way there's an overlap. They're not different.
For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm just checking this now to see if you've caused any damage. No, it's fine.
To your expensive microphone.
It's very expensive.
So, done the internship. Rue, one of your things when you finished your internship said you wish you had more kumite, more sparring, more fighting.
Yeah.
And that was a way you thought it could have been improved. If you were to improve this experience, now you've had a very lovely time, but in terms for if you think about other people coming in, if you could improve on it, what would you suggest?
Well, because you identified kumite as one of my weak spots, so there's been a lot of kumite, hasn't there? So I feel I've had more kumite training in the last 4 weeks than I probably had the rest of my karate career put together, and I've got a lot to take away. So that's not an issue. What would I improve?
If you want to think about that for a second, because I just want to say my answer when Scott Sensei asked me what would I improve about the internship, and I said more kumite, completely naive. I just enjoy the excitement of kumite. Also, I still have had very relatively little training in it because I've never been a competitor. But thinking back now and recognizing just how much work my basic karate needed, and based on the age and potential I had at that point, practicing kumite would have been a complete waste of time.
Well, I'm rather hoping that you don't get much more kumite training, because the chances are that you and I got great stand-up together and we'll have to fight. So I'm hoping that you've been disempowered by the training and I've got better.
No.
You're going to slip us a wee M.
Yeah, what's your price, Ross Sensei? Yeah, and so there isn't an improvement. I mean, the only thing that in a sense is a limitation is the size and nature of the dojo, and that's a given, isn't it? Because you aren't going to get a custom built beautiful sprung floor building in Ranelagh in a hurry, are you?
No, exactly.
So it limits. Like, there were 20 people training last night, and I think when I did my thing there were about 24. I mean, that's about top end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Iron Showdown was like people, it was like a bus station. People were waiting to finish a move when the person in front of them had moved on. So, but that's not an improvement. I rather naively assumed there might be some sort of induction, as it were. So it took me a day to realise I had to ask you, Guy, for the schedule of what you guys are teaching so I could come and teach with you. But then, as Keelan pointed out last night, it's on the website. So that's my fail. Maybe that's my fail of the week.
Now you have to come up with something better than that.
And it's really hard. Because I think all the limitations are mine rather than of this, actually. And that's not me just saying it for the sake of it. I do genuinely think that. I'm coming back. Jane and I have agreed that we'll come back next year.
Fanboy, Matthew.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's sycophantic.
Blowing smoke up all the holes today. Like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I might have feedback for you guys about your careers and your life and so on, but I'm not going to do that on this podcast.
Well, that's nothing to do with the internship.
No, exactly.
How did you feel then? Security through the microphone there, folks.
Let's do it on the podcast. Let's do it now. Come on. Tell me about my career. No, please.
You serious?
No.
Well, look, guys, you're
meter it. This is for an.
You can edit it out.
All right.
Well, look, you're 30 and you're 28.
Ross is 28 and I'm 30.
And you're 30. So, in a way, in my opinion, your 20s is a decade for trying things out and experimenting. But at some stage, a few years either side of 30, one tends to need to make choices about what we want to do in life and how we're going to live it, as it were. Yeah. And of course, for you guys, the decision is: am I going to be a professional karate instructor, or am I going to run my own dojo? Am I going to stay here as an employee, as it were, essentially? Or do I want to have a portfolio life, which you might, for example? And I think what then comes with that is a sense of taking ownership of that journey and taking ownership of then your contribution to everything. Because at the moment it's possible for you to, in a sense, work for Scott Sensei and do what you're asked to do and just fit with it. But at some stage, if you're going to run your own shows, you become proactive and you start initiating things and you start seeing something that isn't working and fixing it. You see what I mean? So I suspect that is going to be a choice you're going to have to make at some stage in the next few years.
Okay.
So that's not a criticism, that's just an observation, as it were.
Sure, I knew that already.
But conversely, if you want to fill a space, Scott Sensei needs to vacate that space. So there's a dance here, in a way.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, so if, for example, one of you said, I think we should be doing so-and-so in the dojo, here's an initiative around something, he's got to agree to it, hasn't he? And what if he doesn't?
Well, it depends on what you suggest.
Of course he's going to agree to some stuff, but he might theoretically not agree to other stuff.
We tend to get them not agree to most. We have a suggestion box.
Yes, I asked about it. I said there's a suggestion box, but it was a bit dusty.
We open that suggestion box when we need a good laugh.
Yeah. So because I mean this is the big complexity, isn't it? Is that you guys are doing something you love, but it's still a job. and you're paid, and there's a implicit and explicit contract about that. But if it wasn't a job that you loved, if all three of us went to work for Amazon, exactly. We would think of it as a job, and then we'd start thinking about, well, what do we want to do with this job? So it's a bit confused, if you see what I mean, when you're doing karate, because you can live the dream, can't you? And as opposed to think, well, how does this fit in with my career?
Yeah,
as it were.
It can be different to see it through the different lenses of what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Well, so your partner, Ross, she's going to start a new job. She's by definition going to be distanced from it because although it's something she loves doing and she's good at, in a way, it's probably not the equivalent of karate to her, and therefore, how does she view it? How does she view her employer? How does she view the conditions? What does she want to do with it? Where does she want to go with it? These questions are rather more inevitable than you are when you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. In my opinion, I may be wrong, but yeah.
Well, for sure, like with our conversation, we were talking about one of the things is that we're very comfortable. Yeah. That's the thing. There's a level of comfort that comes with this kind of work. And the next, again, for me personally, it's always that sudden change, that discomfort that forces me into action, and it's finding a way to sort of, a catalyst to sort of set things off.
Absolutely, and I suppose I'm saying that at some stage you guys need to be uncomfortable in order to stimulate, catalyse, if you like, that new approach. Now, is that going to come from somebody doing it to you, like a job opportunity, or are you going to self-initiate it? And that's a choice. And I work with people who are in their 50s who've always had the catalyst come from externally. An opportunity has arisen, a promotion, a new company, and a new job. But there are some people who self-initiate. Yeah. In a sense, and Scott Sensei is one of them, and I'm another one of them. And,
I've put an end date on my time at the dojo.
Have you?
Yeah. So.
And is it fixed?
Yeah.
I know exactly when I'm going. Is it immutable?
Immutable.
Immutable. I fix.
Well, I think every plan has to be flexible.
Yeah.
But because that date is looming, it's not imminent. No. Another few years. I have to make a plan, and I have to be ready. I have to have enough money. I have to have all this kind of stuff. So I think that'll be my catalyst for.
Well, that's your way of doing it, and that's great, because if that's forcing you into an uncomfortable zone, then it's a great process.
But also, this comfortable zone that we're in really facilitates our growth as karateka.
Yes.
Because I don't know, if you're puking in an alleyway on your way to the dojo every day because you're scared, maybe that's not so conducive to learning.
Do you guys get scared? Because I do.
Come to the dojo?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, sorry, get scared not at the dojo, but sometimes there's kumite and I'm scared because I'm thinking, probably not for you.
No, I haven't been scared for a long time with that, and that's something that I'm self-aware of, that there is that sort of. That anticipation of like it used to be when I was younger, like, oh, so-and-so showed up today, Christ almighty, that's going to be a rough 10 minutes or something, partnered up with them. I don't really get that anymore.
No.
And it was funny, actually, last time I kind of felt that, I think was the nail in the coffin for it, really. It was for going for my Yondan. And I was looking in Juan, Rue, me and Rue had been sparring quite a lot leading up to the grade, and Rue was look very sharp, peaking for the grade, and then Juan was there. Juan's looking very sharp.
Yeah, he's sharp, isn't he?
Paul, Urin, fantastic karate.
Christian
was there, and he's very sharp. And I was looking, I was like, wow, this is a good bunch of guys. Oh my god! And I remember everyone sort of stretching and getting warmed up to the side. I just went, I was like, all right, well, good luck, guys. Let's go out and do our best. And I don't think one person made eye contact with me. And then I went, oh, I'm the scary one. they're all looking at me like
one of those wake up and smell the coffee moments.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, okay. And then after that, I was like, there would be very few people that would trigger that kind of response, especially in training. Under pressure, like competition is different because there's a reward at the end of it, so to speak.
And some of the people are unknown as well.
Unknown. So there's a mindset, even going up against people that I'm comfortable with in the dojo, in a competition setting, it's slightly different. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's very few that would make me. you know.
Yeah, I'm less than I used to be because I'm more confident in my technique and I'm more confident in the control of other people. But I have to have a process for calming myself down when I'm doing kumite, and which is generally just to switch off and go at it. So when Ru and I fought each other in our Nidan grading, it was like, oh my God, he's a professional instructor and he's 30 years younger than me and blah blah. And then I thought, oh, there's only one way to handle this method, is to go at him.
Yeah, that's it.
And then the fear disappeared. Essentially,
but also it doesn't really hurt. Even if it does hurt, it doesn't hurt.
No,
if you get an ouchie, it'll be ouchie for a few seconds, and then you'll forget about it. And maybe it'll be ouchie then when you're trying to get to sleep that night. But you're like, oh, fair play to me, I got an ouchie, and didn't I do well?
My ouchies are generally dislocated fingers. That's the problem.
Yeah, I've got one too.
I'm rubbish at splaying out in my. Let's see, there's still got the bruise there from this one. But I might tape my fingers up for my next grading. Stop them from splaying out. Yeah.
I think my fear comes from, again, when it comes to competing, it's not so much the fear of being hurt. It's the fear of the expectation.
Yeah.
There is a massive target on I feel my back, especially being the competitor. Out of I think the three instructors, AJ, Ru, and myself, I think being the competitor, being the one with that experience, being known for being relatively good at kumite, that's then having people who you then go and teach and say, this is how you should do it, this is what how you should prepare for competition and going out and then losing. I always feel like if I lose, then what right do I have to tell them anything? That I have to get myself out of that mindset, which is quite tricky at times.
I mean, I believe that one should. Everybody's got fears, and your fears are not my fears, are not your fears, as it were. But life is about a successful life is about learning to open the door with a monster behind it. Regardless of the fact there might be a monster behind it. A, because there usually isn't a monster behind it, but B, we define ourselves by how we deal with those fears and challenges. For me, the three biggest challenges have been 2 gradings and jumping out of an aeroplane with a parachute. That was the scariest thing I've ever done. But I confronted the fear and I jumped because I decided I'd rather die than have the humiliation of going back on ground as one of those people who didn't jump out the door.
Did you have a man strapped to your back?
No. It's by yourself.
Ooh.
And
whoa!
But I remember sitting in the plane. Well, it was always, it doesn't matter because it's this afternoon.
So did you have to pack your own parachute?
No, God, no, that's dangerous.
I thought that was a rule because you weren't allowed to self jump unless you knew how to pack your own parachute, because nobody else's fault if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
This is 40 years ago, okay? But no, they pack you, then so you train on the Saturday, you turn up on the Sunday morning, they decide if the weather's okay, and then they load you in the airplane. They're constantly saying, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this. And I'm thinking, okay, I can decide when I'm up there.
The more they say that, the more I'd say, yes, I do have to do this.
And then eventually...
Tingly feeling in my balls just thinking about it.
I had this moment like, do you want to jump? And I had this, an hour that concertinaed into 1 second of, I'm going to jump, regardless of what happens. And I jumped, and of course there's the exhilaration of being in free fall for 3 seconds, and then there's the exhilaration of it's a very peaceful world, and then there's the, oh my God, this ground's approaching rather fast, and I better get my legs together, and my strap wasn't quite right, so I couldn't quite get my knees together, so I landed quite hard. And then he came up and said, well done. He said, do you want to do it again? And I said, why on earth would I want to do that again?
You could have gone twice in one day. That would be great.
Yeah. So, but that was really quite a defining moment for me in terms of facing my fears, actually. And of course, the grading is facing your fears for me. And I mean, I'm nervous about grading, and I don't know many people who aren't. When you're in front of hundreds of people and you're exhausted and the adrenaline's coursing and all these sorts of things. So I think I'll only ever do one more. Once I get to Sandown, I've got a degree of respectability, haven't I?
Yeah.
And I would be 69 doing my Yondan. I'll be 65 for my Sandown and 69 for my Yondan, but who knows? If I'm still alive, I might want to do it.
Why the fuck not? Yeah, you probably will actually. Lads, I'm going for my Yondan.
But I have realised here, actually, this is talking about something here. I've realised that I can't just blithely go into my Sandown grading next year. I have to feel ready to do it.
Yeah.
And I realise that I need to up although I might pass, I want to know that I passed, and people will look at me and say he deserved his Sandan. And I don't want people to say, well, he got it, but he only just, and his kumite is a bit rubbish. I want my kumite to be good enough that people say he deserves his place up there, and I won't do it unless I feel I've earned it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a little holiday in Cambridge and just go beat Matthew up
yes,
for a weekend.
please. We've got room for you to stay. There's a lovely little hall with a sprung floor about 50 yards from my house. We can hire that.
A little private course.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could do
We just negotiate fees now, do we?
No. Do it for
Room and board.
room and board.
Room, board and beer money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about... It's very hard to think of a negative about this, apart from the fact that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and, maybe if I'd have done a training at weekends, it might have, I might... There's part of me that feels a slight imposter that I didn't train over the weekends in a way here.
Weekends are tough.
There's another part thinking I probably couldn't have done.
Yeah. I think, again, it's... I think there's a very we don't talk about it. We don't talk about before interns show up what we have planned for them, what we do. It's a very organic, natural thing that happens. So, for example, we've got young Keelan starting next week as an intern. He's 25, and I imagine, without talking to him, without talking to any instructors, he will have a completely different experience to you because he's 25, and he will get bumped and bruised a little bit more. He will be forced to do every class. He will be, pushed in a completely different way, as opposed to what you're doing, or what previous interns have done before. Because he's also probably one of the technically more proficient interns that will come in. So even the technical advice is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
Keelan, by the way, because folks on the podcast never heard of Keelan. But Keelan is now the head of HDK. Shut up. Be nice to Keelan. No, why would they indeed? He's brand new. Yeah. Keelan is head of HDKI Sligo. He has recently come into the fold, and he spends most of his week in Dublin, teaches at home in Sligo on the weekends, and he's been training at the dojo non-stop.
Yeah.
Even
So he won't train at weekends.
One with me as well.
He won't train at weekends either, then, will he?
No.
Here.
No.
Oh, I get no, because he'll be at home teaching.
No, man, he runs a dojo and he wants to grow something. So yeah, and he's a different animal. He's the same age as my son. Let's get into perspective.
He's only a squirt.
Yeah.
But he's a lovely person and his karate's nice.
Don't say that now, because he's going to be interning in a while.
Well, he's a lovely person, but we're still going to bump him and bruise him.
When's he starting his internship?
Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to ritually hand over my keys and the red book to him tonight.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he was actually starting that
So
soon.
he's shadowing my classes today to get an idea of what he expect, what teaching style we have and stuff. So it's very thorough. Most people would just wait till they're on the internship to start teaching, but he wants to have an idea of what's expected and how we do things, so he's not coming in.
So he'll be joining in the mornings. He'll be...
He already does the evenings and stuff, but assisting in classes,
Yeah. Okay. I have other questions, but not for the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an article of faith for me that I've done every morning training, and I have. And it's been an article of faith for me that I do at least 1 hour co-teaching, which I have, apart from the first day. And it's been an article of faith for me that I do every evening. So as long as I do this evening, I've kept my own contract, as it were.
Actually, one of the refreshing things is very little grumbling. A lot of the interns have a...
do they?
Right, actually, yeah.
Do they?
My foot's sore. It's a blister.
I'm so tired. I did so. Yesterday was 5 hours. I probably did a fair bit of that, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just assume it's my problem.
I'm a big complaining pants at the best of times. I don't complain about people. I just complain about how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I just get it all out. I'm like, listen to this. Wah! And then I'm
I'll
done.
be dying in the corner and not see a peep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point, isn't it? When you feel rubbish, you get on the floor.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's my attitude. Even though I'll be tired and I'll be incredibly stiff, and
That's when you need it.
there'll be part of me. That is the whole point, is to get on the floor. That's my attitude. So it's like not for debate.
No, and that's not the point when I complain as well.
Not for debate. That's it.
It's not for debate.
Not for debate. Get on the.
That's not
fucking doggy on. Get on that fucking floor.
But that's not my angle when I'm complaining. I'm just sharing my feelings. You know? And then I'll get
when
on
did you think that was okay? Sharing feelings in the dojo.
I share feeling. And then it'll be like, right, let's get on the dojo. And then I'll be like, oh, fucking okay. And then as soon as the warm up is finished, I'm away.
Yeah, brilliant afterwards.
No, I it's been a fantastic experience, you know, and I have escaped being hit by the Scott Sensei Shinai as well so far. Anyway,
Really?
it was tonight. Yeah,
Maybe
he hasn't touched me yet.
Tonight.
No,
Really? You never
no, I know.
really
Do you think he's saving it?
Matthew got me my very own Shinai,
Yes.
which was so cool. I honestly, that was one of the best
Matthew
gifts.
Sensei got us presents.
Yeah.
So, what did he get for you? What was the first present you got, Ross?
I'm not talking about
it. What? He gave you a little package wrapped up in lovely, colourful wrapping paper, and you opened
With,
it on the dojo floor in front of everyone.
Well, for
And had a little tantrum. I have to say, I had a little tantrum.
for anybody listening who has any awareness of the relationship between the English and the Scottish,
How could they not?
will
And Scots.
know that giving a Scotsman an England football shirt is tantamount to a declaration of war, which is why my present was thrown summarily
You
on the
threw it
floor.
across the
But
floor.
luckily, I also gave him a shinai, so I think I redeemed myself
It's a lovely-
by the skin of my teeth.
I was not
Shiny
expecting
Shinai.
when. I was not expecting anything like that.
Well,
It was
Ross
far too
Sensei is going to
generous.
be hopefully running his own dojo at some stage, so I think it was like the staff of power,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
For it was all Lord of the Rings fans.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he got his Gandalf staff. He looks a bit like Gandalf, actually, doesn't he? Yeah.
Ginger Gandalf.
Servant of the Secret Fire.
So, Ruth Sensei, what was your present? So, two presents. One, one fun present, one serious present.
My first present was some washing up gloves.
Yeah. Black,
because I needed.
because they're Dan grade ones.
Oh yes, of course.
Black
I need
ones.
some special encouragement in cleaning the dojo properly because I've been letting it slip a bit lately. But hey, when I clean, the place is spotless. It's just getting around to it sometimes. I do forget. And sometimes I do remember and not do it anyway.
And the serious present was?
A book which I've been dying to read for a long time called The Moving Body. I forget the title in French is The Poetic Body, but The Moving Body by Jacques Lecoq, who is a very
Yeah.
shut up.
Lower the tone, Ross Sensei.
Jacques Lecoq, a very famous and highly esteemed physical theatre educator from France. The founder of the Lecoq School, which is shut up.
And I gave
What school did you go to? Oh.
Lecoq.
and I gave AJ Sensei the fun present was a book on conspiracy theories because, like many Eastern Europeans, he's more conspiracy than cock up in his view of world events. But I gave him a book that actually was about conspiracy theories that are true, so that was funny.
Cool.
But the serious present was a book about raising children because he's a parent. And Scott Sensei, I gave him, my joke present was The Bluffer's Guide to Management.
Yeah.
Given that he's got to manage you guys. The serious present was we went out for a really rather nice meal, taster menu, 6 courses, and
We didn't hear about that.
No, sure.
No, this is the first we're hearing about this now.
switch that off. Sorry, I will.
Should I to use? Whereabouts was that?
So that was at a restaurant in near where he lives. Oh, I forget the name. What do you call that?
Harold's Cross?
No, where you and I, where you
Terranure.
trained.
Terranure.
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 Okay.
And it was a rather nice restaurant. I don't think it was Michelin starred, but we had a
No Michelin star, bah!
6-course taster menu, and with a wine with each, which my wife and I shared our wines, and Scott and Tor didn't. And good for them. And yeah, that was it. But I mean, any future interns, you don't have to buy these guys presents.
Oh, God,
It is not discouraged.
It's not just I just wrote everybody a card.
Yeah. No. I can give a present, so I did. And but Paul Fitzpatrick said, because he wants to be an intern, he said, "You've set a very high standard here." I said, "It's okay, Paul. You can come below it."
Paul Fitz is going to do the internship. Jesus.
No.
What?
I do mean Paul Fitz short.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said one day he'd like to do it. He said to me, "Am I betraying a confidence here?"
Yeah.
I better edit it out then.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
edit that
Sure,
out.
nobody knows Paul. It's fine.
Just in case.
He's a really interesting guy, isn't he?
You think so?
Yeah. He's quite thoughtful. He comes and makes quite profound statements, actually.
No, he's very
I
switched
think
He
on.
does
he's got
have his
quite a
moments,
senior
yeah.
job, hasn't he? I think.
You've probably experienced him drunk more than anything else.
No. I've had chats with him before, but I think there's a lot under the surface there. There's a lot to get to know.
Well,
For sure.
and for him and I have the connection of having had a life-threatening, illness. So that does philosophically make you more, akin to people. As it were. So no, he's one of many people that I've had lovely conversations with.
That's very good.
Full of characters, this dojo.
Absolutely.
Oh, it is indeed. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think it's time.
It is.
Do you think it's time? It's time. It's time for a fail
Of the week.
Fail of the week. Now,
I know what mine is. Will I go?
You make.
Go on.
You make
Okay,
Gives you time
I'll
to
go.
think.
Okay, yes, you think away. And even if you need more time to think, we'll just edit the long silences out. I have been swimming again.
Oh,
Winter's coming on, which means which means you have to go and jump in the sea. If you're a man at all, you'll be jumping in the sea in the middle of winter. If you're a man at all. So, there I was down at Sea
I think
Point.
I'll stay in my bed with my lovely girlfriend. Thank you.
No, get her down as well. She'd love it. She likes it.
Just staying in bed with your girlfriend count as a fail? Then, is that
No, the lovely Deirdre would enjoy such an exhilarating experience. You should bring her down.
No.
Okay. But anyway, there I was down at Dunleary. I was at Sea Point, and when the tide is low at Sea Point, you can still jump in because it's called the 40 foot, not Sea Point. Fucking idiot! I wasn't at Sea Point. I was at the 40 foot. And when the tide is low, when the tide is low, it's still really deep at the 40 foot. That's why they call it the 40 foot. So I saw this wonderful looking woman. Because she looked like an Olympian.
Oh, right.
She climbed up to the high bit and did a big dive, big old dive, about 10 feet, and loved a silent splash. It was a kerplunk. Yeah. and then swam away. And I turned around to my sister and I was like, "Did you see that woman doing the dive?" And I turned back and she was gone. She was lightning. She swum away so fast. So I thought, okay, she's the real deal. No wonder she did a big dive. And I was a bit scared. So I didn't do a big dive. So I clambered in down the ladder and did a little split splash. Sister did a little split splash. She got out to dry. And I got out and I was like, no, I'm going to do a big dive. So I walked up to the bit where you do a big dive and there's lots of people around because it's the 40 foot. There's always lots of people around. And I stood there right where she had stood and I looked over the edge and I was like, oh, okay. 1, 2, 3... 4. I couldn't go, but I suddenly got full of the fear because probably nobody was taking one bit of notice of me.
Yeah.
But there might have been somebody coming up behind me if they wanted to do a big dive. So I just jumped in feet first.
Yeah.
And I was in, and it was so deep down. So I swam back up. Took me a few seconds, and I was like, no. So I hopped out, immediately got out, went back to the bit, and I went 1, 2, and then I went on 2, and I just dived right in, and I did it. So it was initially a fail, but then I became a big brave boy, and I did a big dive.
So listeners, here's the fantasy postscript, okay? This beautiful woman comes up to Rue Sensei after and says, I was so amazed by that, I want to have your babies.
That dive. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that dive.
You're such a brave boy.
Merman.
Let's have mer babies.
That's it. Oh, Matthew Sensei.
Well, my fail, my repeated fails of the week is when you, Ross Sensei or Scott Sensei, are teaching moving in kumite, like driving off the back leg or having one leg in front of the other, and repeatedly failing at it, looking at Scott Sensei, and you can see he's going, oh, for God's sake, shall I hit him with a shinai or shall I just give up and move on? And, to my credit, he hasn't done that, but, I have not got the art of, swiftly moving in kumite. Yet, so it's a repeated fail, but it will be rectified.
Or keeping one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Well, I have another fail, which is I asked Ross Sensei to give me some help with kumite, and he's pointed out to me that when I drop my hands to my waist, he's going to hit me in the face. Like, keep your hands up, Matthew. And after saying it about 5 times, he said, next time you do it, I'm going to hit you, and he did. So that was fair enough.
Give me a little smack.
Well, it was a very controlled smack, but it was definitely why are your hands down where they are. So those are my fails of the week. They are, of course, karate.
So my fail happened. It was a teaching moment, and I was with the beginner kids, and the class is a well-behaved class in general, and blah blah blah. They're going through it, and this one kid, who shall remain nameless, decided
Little Timmy
decided that he was going to get bored and start messing about. Lost his concentration, started messing. So, no, don't do that. That's don't do it. Okay, and then he done it again. I was like, okay, that's first warning. That's first warning. If you do it again, you're going to have to go and sit on the naughty couch. And he wasn't doing anything like crazy bad. It was just, he's small and therefore he's short attention span. But unfortunately, when he loses that concentration, he just goes mental rather than just sitting quietly. And I had to give him a second warning. And I said, okay, you have to go and sit on the naughty couch. So I walked him over and he stood by the couch and I said, okay, you sit down there. And I turned around to the class and I turned around and he wasn't sitting down. And I said, no, little Timmy, you have to sit down, otherwise you're going to stay there. You have to do your 2 minutes on the couch. And then he just went, no. And I went, what? He's like, no, I'm not good. And I was like, no, you don't understand. You're not getting back on this dojo until you sit down for your 2 minutes. He's like, no. And I was like, well, you can stand there for as long as you want, but until you sit down, you're going to for 2 minutes. You're not coming back on the dojo. So I started resuming the class and teaching, and then he just walked on the dojo and started joining in.
Oh my god!
And I was like,
I don't know what I'd do.
I was like, what? I was like, what are you doing? And he just ignored me, and he just, but like behaving perfectly.
Right,
but I was like,
but he hasn't done his time out.
And I was like, so do I let this go because he's now behaving, or do I stubbornly stick to the set a precedent, stick to the rules, and just then enforce them off? So I said, no, little Timmy, you have to give me your hand, and I walked him over to the couch. And I said, listen, you have to sit down for 2 minutes. Now, if you do that for 2 minutes, you can come back on the dojo, but until then, you can't join in. And he went, no. And he just walked past. and he just walked past me and joined back into the class and sat down. So I was like, okay, the class is going to sit down and do nothing until little Timmy goes and sits on the couch for 2 minutes, and I waited. And everyone was like, it's not fair to the other kids, this sort of tactic, but I was like, surely this will make him feel guilty and go to the couch, or the other kids will start being like, just go to the couch. Yeah. And the other kids were, but he just switched off and started spinning on his bum round in a circle for 2 minutes, and I was like, and I was looking at the other kids, and I was like, okay, everyone to the wall, we're going to play a game of crawling zombies. Play a game, but little Timmy's not playing, so don't tag him. Ready, go! And it took ages of him not being left out, and then eventually he sorted himself out and he went and sat on the couch for about a minute. And then I was like, I'll take it. But then he behaved himself for the rest of the class. But Christ, I was like, I didn't know what to do because none of the tactics were working. So I was texting the boss, who has obviously years and years, and I was like, what's the boss was like, he should be banned. We can't have kids like that in this dojo. Send him to the dungeon, very much. It was like he's never coming back. But luckily the wee man sorted himself out. But yeah, that was a fail, because it's been a long time since I've been kind of stuck with a child like that, and really have anything work. Normally I find something that works, and that took too long. And there was parents watching, and it was very uncomfortable for me because the parents are watching. Some of the kids are there for the first time and they're seeing how I deal with discipline. I didn't raise my voice.
His parents weren't there.
No. I don't, and I did talk with the person that picked them up afterwards and said that can't happen again. Otherwise, he's going to be missing classes or kicked up.
But the good news is we've signed him up to be the next intern.
No, can you imagine?
I think I should permission to battle the shit. One of the parents said that. He's like, it's a shame you can't give him a smack.
What? My parents said that.
Oh, it was the
There's a law against that.
It was the kind of just that way where nothing was working, and obviously there's obviously a lack of discipline in the house. Obviously, if there's no sort of sense of right and wrong and stuff, so. Yeah, it's been a while since I've had to deal with that, but luckily I kept my cool.
I have a kid at the moment. He's been to 3 classes, and he just has no notion in his head that he ought to do what someone tells him. It just does not occur to him that anything other than exactly what he wants to do is what he should do.
He must be interesting in the domestic environment.
Yeah.
We had a discussion about this child.
Yes,
and
let's call him Johnny.
When was the last time Johnny was in your class?
Tuesday,
because...
Oh, no. He wasn't there on... He was there on Tuesday. Yeah, he was, yeah.
Better?
A little bit.
Because I had him on Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
Perfect.
Really?
Yeah. High energy.
Yeah.
So there's times where he'll then... the same sort of thing, lose concentration, do something, but the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 works every time with him.
You're right, actually. Now that I think of it, on Tuesday he was loads better, because the Tuesday before, this is one of my classes, which is still outdoors. He would not respond to anything, and he'd see a squirrel running up the tree, and he'd run away. He'd be like, squirrel! Off, he was gone, and I'd be like, no, Johnny, you've got 5 seconds to get back to the line, and he's climbing the tree, and I'm like, 5, 4, Johnny, 3, all right, everybody sit down, we're going to wait for Johnny. No response, just doing nothing but exactly what he wants to do.
Similar situation. Yeah. Tricky.
It's interesting, isn't it, to think about whether it's the parents or whether actually it's just a child with ADHD or something else, because it's very easy to judge the parents, but as somebody who's been a parent, sometimes kids are very, very tricky to handle.
And I think what I was thinking is, because what I could say to his mother is, I don't think this is for him. And sometimes that's what parents are thinking. Sometimes they come to me and they're like, oh, maybe we should wait till he's a bit older. And I always say, keep bringing him, because I just need to find a way to motivate him. He needs to want to do this.
Well, you two are really good at it. That's what I can say. Well, and AJ, he does it in a different way, but in each of your individual ways, you're brilliant at it.
I think we're all very different, actually. We follow the same
rough format,
but but we have very different tactics when it comes to keeping kids engaged.
I think how you handled that kid was fantastic. I mean, to do that in the moment, to think about a strategy, shows your experience.
Tough going, man. Because you want it to just be like, strangling Homer Simpson, strangling Bart. I'll put you on the couch, you wee fucker.
Apparently you're not allowed to do that.
No.
Well, one time I had to physically remove a child from a birthday party by picking him up and dragging him off another child. So that was an emergency, though.
Interesting enough,
one time I had to separate kids out of school. They were fighting. I had to literally grab a hold of two of them and pull them apart.
Interesting enough, though, in the UK, instructors are very reluctant to touch children now because of that whole, environment.
Oh, of course,
So, whereas you guys, you will correct and do things like that. So, maybe it's gone over the top in the UK. Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, wrapped in bubble wrap. A lot of them.
Oh, I've been listening to psychologists talking about that, talking about soft parenting.
Yeah.
Quickly. It's because in the 90s, the likes of Hillary Clinton, and he named a bunch of other people, I can't remember who, but a dominance suddenly became very narrative, which is our kids are in trouble. It's like they're having so much sex, they're doing so many drugs, they're getting involved in crime, etc. And that has always been a problem all over America and all over the world. But what they were ignoring was that it was getting better all the time. Kids were having less sex, doing less drugs, staying in school longer. But it just became the popular thing to be concerned about. And it became really popular. They were writing books about it, about how we needed to protect. Someone please think of the children, the line in The Simpsons. That was a direct satire of these kind of hysterical people. And that's why you have millennials the way we are now.
Ball bags.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting because I'm of the view that the best thing you can do for a child is have tough love, in the sense have parameters. But love them.
Well, this guy says, there's he mentioned two, child psychologists, and each of them has a drastically different approach, and he said a marriage of the two is the best,
It is really interesting. A lot of my clients have challenges with millennials because millennials think very differently. They have very different expectations of their managers. They're much more vocal, and a lot of my clients are really struggling with that. And they blame the millennials, and they use pejorative language like snowflakes and stuff. But actually, when you talk to the millennials, from their perspective, it makes a lot of sense what they're doing. And I make a living out of sometimes brokering that conversation. Even though I'm not a millennial, obviously. Anyway,
all right, it's time to wrap it up.
Thank you very much for listening, guys.
Gotta clean this fucking dojo.
Di, 1, 2, 3.